I mean, one of the things that I am kind of trying to refine currently is how can I help my students also be on a journey to finding what works for them and what is most authentic to them and who they are as authentic people, rather than, how can we all bend ourselves into these really odd shapes, and that's fun and interesting and could perhaps be insightful on this journey to trying to be authentic in our practice. But it's not, it's also potentially a hindrance, because so many people get wrapped up in not looking like, it used to be not looking like, that person a few mats down, but now it's like that other person in that small box. So, I'm just kind of, I feel like, although I've been teaching for about 10 years now, I feel like still kind of like a baby yoga teacher, just because as I get older and wiser as a human, the more I'm able to just show up as a yoga teacher. I think that, it just really informs how I teach and how I feel in my body and how therefore I can help other people feel in their body.
And we're back. Welcome back to Seeker and Sage, everybody. Danny Pomploon here. And this week we got Jack Workman on the show. Jack is a local teacher here in San Francisco. He is super rad, very kind, and extremely knowledgeable. He took his teacher training when he was really young and has been studying and teaching all around in San Francisco for quite some time now. It's been really cool to see his journey as a teacher. From afar, I've always just kind of kept eyes on him and seeing what he's up to and, what his passions are. And he's super dialed in. It's just incredible to see him grow as he moves far along. So, I'm so excited to have Jack on the show today. A quick note for everybody. If y'all don't know Yvonne Kingsley, she's definitely been on the show multiple times, but we're leading a free Pranayama workshop webinar, and that's going to happen on April 10th in the morning. I'll leave more information about it in the show notes here. You can click, it's free for anyone. And for you yoga teachers out there that want to take it, you also get an hour of Yoga Alliance continuing education credits, which is super rad and super cool. You can also sign up for it inside the Danny Pomploon Yoga app. So don't forget, right inside the navigation tab, you'll see more and you can just sign up for it right there. And the practices will live inside of the Danny Pomploon app as well. So don't forget to download that. If you love the show, make sure you tell your friends. That is the best way to get the show out there, to let it grow, to have it be sustainable. And you can always head to iTunes as well to leave us a little love note. We love that. And don't forget to join the Facebook group. We've been hanging out and having conversations and chatting in there. So jump on in. Without further ado, here goes Jack Workman. Jack Workman. What's up?
Hey, Danny. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here.
I'm kind of surprised that I've actually never had you on. I don't know why. Like, I feel like I should have had you on a while ago.
Well, it just takes, a vulnerable post on Instagram and, here I am.
I mean, let's dive right into it, right? I think it's important. You did post that and I read it online and I think I sent you a message immediately, right? And was like, yeah. This is good stuff. This is real stuff.
Yeah, it's, actually, I did a series of posts that week. I don't know, what was going on with me, but I was just kind of experiencing the mishaps of being a yoga teacher in the COVID era. And so I had a lot of good feedback from those posts and a lot of people felt really seen by them. And, it was kind of surprising to me, the amount of engagement that I got. So I'm really happy that it was helpful.
Yeah. Let's just fill everybody in about the post. So you let's rewind a little bit. So those people that are just tuning in that haven't read them, walk us through it.
Yeah. So the first post that I made was kind of in response to a feeling that I had and a feeling that I often have after I, get a bunch of photos back from a photographer that, I feel like I can't use half the photos because I'm just kind of critical on my body image, or, I'm looking at how I look in a pose and thinking I couldn't, post this because I'm a yoga teacher and I'm supposed to be doing this perfect. Or, or wow, they're going to think that I really let myself go during COVID, So I guess I used that as a learning opportunity or a teaching opportunity really for myself and for people on Instagram to kind of discuss the topic of body image and how we show up and how we, remember the kind of universal love that all exists within us and for us, despite what we look like. And, how as a yoga teacher, I'm really showing up and teaching these lessons of acceptance and love and remembrance in that universal love. But I'm also a human experiencing the kind of difficult experiences of body image, especially as, a queer man. And so I made that post and it worked really well as a way to kind of engage around that topic. And then the next day I made another post around some of the tech issues that I have as a yoga teacher online and, kind of going into that new world and accepting my imperfection around that. I don't know if you want me to specifically go in.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, I think it's good to hear what you were, going through. I think, first off, there's so much to unpack on what you just said. But it's, for me, I've struggled, a lot with, I'm very not afraid to say anything on how I'm feeling on Instagram. I'm pretty vulnerable about depression, anxiety, drug use, just like everything. It's pretty much out there. And it for me, it's been really freeing. And I can only imagine, I remember the first time I did a really raw, vulnerable post. I don't think I'd ever mentioned to anybody before, like really deeply about, drug use or even suicide. And there was this article that came out on Vice magazine. And after it came out, I had multiple friends that I'd never really gotten into conversation with reach out. And even then I had the shame come back, like, oh my God, did I say too much? Is this what, am I using this as like a pity party, da, 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 da. And, I kind of did my own process through it. But at the end of it, what I realized is again, for me, it wasn't just that I was, welcoming all, this is something that we talk about in yoga, is really like finding wholeness, and embracing all sides of ourselves. But it was a way of saying, like, look, I'm a yoga teacher and I've done some of the work, and I also thought for a long time I did other pieces of the work and really just didn't. And I've done all the self-help and da, 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 da. But it's got me to a point where I'm actually able to share something that was shameful or that was, holding me down. And the practice asks us to be extremely honest, rigorously honest, to call ourselves out and to use that as teachable moments. So, when I saw that from you, I was just like, this is it. Like, this is what for me, Jack, that I don't know, like I've known you, we're not close friends and we don't hang out all the time, but you're in orbit, you're there. And I constantly see you all the time. And for me, I was like, fuck yeah, Jack. Like, yeah, man, I'm rooting for you. Like,
well, I needed that.
Yeah.
I had that kind of similar experience of the shame gremlins poking their heads up when I made those posts and kind of navigating those feelings of, is this the right content? Is this, is sharing this aspect of myself really the way I want to show up on that platform or just in general? And then, those thoughts of shame were kind of alleviated both by this reassurance that, this is speaking my truth and this is what I've learned through yoga how to do. So this is exactly what I need to do. But also, once again, by the reactions of like just the amount of people just saying like, wow, I'm really there with you, experiencing the same thing. Yeah. So that was really empowering. And it almost I don't know if you feel the same way, but it almost feels kind of addicting, or that's a negative way to frame it. But, it's so empowering to share vulnerability that you just want to just continue to let those doors open up nice and wide.
Yeah. And I think that there's like with any of that, there's like this self-validation that you get. It's almost like, oh yeah, cool, great. So I'm going to like, if people can really, I mean, I've seen people in the community been like, okay, well now it's just my time to dump everything on somebody. And it's almost like they're going for it. And I don't want to take away from anyone's experience, but I think, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I got as a teacher when I first started was, like, don't ever go and share a part of your dharma until you have made sense of it. Right. So I'm not going to come into a yoga room and be like, well, I just got broken up with and I'm extremely bummed out and super sad right now. So let's do yoga now. Like, but more so.
Totally.
Has anyone ever experienced
that's
sadness?
That's kind of like unloading and kind of pushing your negative emotions onto somebody else. And, I've experienced that as a yoga student in classes where, you just kind of, after the end of the Dharma talk at the beginning of class, you kind of feel like you're like in that negative space with the teacher.
You're almost trapped.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, okay, like I'm just trying to like do some yoga right now. But
cool. So can we down dog now?
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. You have to tread that balance of oversharing, but also speaking your truth. And I agree that sometimes Dharma is just admitting that we're all humans. I think some students have this perspective of yoga teachers as being these like impeccable human beings that just are full of divine light and never touched by feelings of sadness. But I really find myself as a student gravitating to teachers that are just really truthful with who they are. And I think that being truthful takes skillfulness. And so you're not, like we were just talking about, dumping your emotions onto your students as your
turning a room of 20. That's exactly what I was going to say. Turning 20 people into your support system.
Yeah, exactly. Which we've all been in that class, and I almost feel like in those classes I want to message the teacher in like the DMs later and be like, if you ever need somebody to talk to,
it's like, not me.
I'm here for you. but I won't be back to your class, unfortunately.
Yeah, totally. I feel that. I was going to ask, something that came up while you were sharing. Just there's so many layers about the body image of yoga, and even the perfectionism that we give to ourselves. I mean, we're not all guilty of it, but I'm definitely guilty of it, where I'm like, I got to get this pose down, or I got to do this. And, X, Y, and Z. It's different now. I'm a little older. I'm injured. I can't do all the fun things that I used to. And I'm totally okay with that. My body just doesn't want to do that stuff anymore. And I'm happy about it. But not only, you'd said two parts, right? Not only us as yoga teachers, where we're like, we want to perfect the thing. We want to make the thing look right. It should look like this, which kind of, for me, leaves this really unrealistic expectation to the students that are coming to our classes. Like, we've now kind of set this like standard of like, well, if you don't do it this way, then you're wrong. And you have, you know what I'm saying? It almost leads this like negative, it just could lead to a really negative, it could lead to a really negative train of thought I think for people. And the second layer to that, Jack, and I know for a fact that you can relate to this, is we are queer men. We are queer men. And in queer society, girl, they are not nice.
No. Yeah, I totally relate to that. And I think that's kind of that's totally intertangled in my journey of body image, being queer and mostly observing through, the spaces that we live in here in San Francisco, and also just in general, like the kind of LGBT queer media that we see is just really glorifying this super, fit,
hypermasculine,
skinny, muscular, hypermasculine male image. And, there's so many layers in that as well, but just kind of showing up as myself, and queerness being a part of me in pretty much everything that I do, but also, then having to show up in my community and kind of negotiate and figure out how I stand within that. That's a really interesting
pursuit, and it definitely affects me. And I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but
That's okay.
I don't know if you can edit this out.
No, let's keep it in.
Okay.
I'm into it.
You're right.
I think,
right. We're talking about vulnerability.
What you're saying totally makes sense though, right? Because, what you experience in your observation of body, and there's two layers to it, right? It's what we do to ourselves as yoga teachers and what sometimes people expect out of us. And we have a second layer of it as what our experience as queer men is like. Look, in queer society, a lot of it tends to be really hyper masculine. You're very fit. Just look on Instagram. Yeah. Everyone's, a lot of boyfriends are like Instagram influencers, and they're, they tend to be of just, there's a certain breed of them that, and totally. I'll leave it at that without having to, that's a whole, like, we can do a whole season on that.
Totally. And I'll be crying through that season. So
it's actually just me and Jack crying for 12 episodes.
That's why we need to start bringing the video element into this.
I think people might pay to watch that, right?
Yeah, seriously. No, but I totally, I have to navigate that body image issue within being a yoga teacher, because, as a yoga teacher, you wouldn't know how many pictures of yourself you have to post on the internet just to kind of sustain your business. And, that kind of naturally is going to bring up a lot of vulnerability and shame around, the body. And that's why I haven't fully, identified with the kind of, I don't know if there's like a mainstream, like, or maybe like just gay men culture. And I find myself at odds with that a little bit. And I've always felt a little lost within that. And I think that's definitely helped inform my yoga teaching, though, being an outsider and, having a different experience than other people is what makes you a great teacher. So I'm really grateful. I'm glad that I've come to the wisdom of understanding that, my experience, my unique experience that may be, kind of difficult and painful at moments is actually what makes me special and, a really uniquely good teacher. So.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I was going to ask you, if you don't mind sharing, obviously, what has been your experience, kind of coming through your own body image, queer yoga teacher, did you feel like you had to fit this perfect mold, that everything, where did that?
Yeah, the first thing that comes up for me, and I think I have kind of a unique experience in this, is that, I was doing yoga long before I ever came out as queer. I started practicing yoga when I was about 12 years old, and I did it really like religiously and consistently as a way to, feel at home in my body, to be in my authentic seat as a 12-year-old.
But that's super wise for a 12-year-old.
Then eventually when it was, I was always kind of an interesting human being, especially as a kid. And, then when I showed up to this like realization, like, oh God, like I'm gay. Like, I'm so grateful that I had the tools of yoga as a way to navigate that experience of coming out to myself and to everyone else, and, continually. So I'm really happy that, yoga gave me those tools. And I think, not to like assume anyone's experience, but I think that often, people kind of come out or arrive in their adulthood and then find yoga. And yoga is this way to just continue to drop into that, authenticity, or to deal with the kind of struggles of the past. And for me, it's kind of a different journey. So.
Yeah, I hear that. That was definitely mine. Like, I was definitely way more into, I came out really early. That was my experience. Yeah. I didn't find yoga until, I took my first yoga class at like 18, but I flirted with yoga for a long time, and I didn't really start getting serious until like 25, which was just a couple of years ago. So no, I didn't really start, getting super serious until like 25. And that eventually, even now, even in this last year, as I've said, like, I just now feel like I'm starting to
come home to all of myself where the last podcast episode was just about me, having to separate Danny, the queer man, and Danny, the burner, and Danny, the yoga teacher, and Danny, the friend that has fun with certain friends, but not with the other friends. And then that kind of, I don't know. I just felt like I was really separating different sides of myself versus just being like, no, this is really all of me. And each and every single bit of me influences the other. And you don't have to weaponize one for the other. You don't have to, nothing has to be shoved in anything's face. It can just be one solid piece together. And Jack, what got me there was vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually just, the word vulnerability is popping up a lot for me because I actually just got done listening to Brene Brown's vulnerability. I forgot the name of the book. What is it? I can't remember the name, but it's a great.
There's brave in the wild. There's dare to lead. There's daring greatly.
Daring greatly, yeah. She also has a talk specifically on vulnerability that you can find on Audible. And I just have to say
that was her big TED talk. Yeah, that was what made Brene. That vulnerability talk was what made Brene Brown.
Yeah, and then just totally she summed it up in such a skillful way, I think, and I just feel that I don't know what I feel, Danny. I'm trying to remember my thought again. Remind me of the question that you just asked.
No, I was saying, for me, the part that really brought all of these sides of me together was being vulnerable. It was really just calling on my vulnerability to help everything kind of interlock in. I think it's made me a better everything. It's made me a better, literally, it's made me a better, partner to my partner. It's made me a better, teacher. It's made me a better friend. It's made me a better son. It's made me a better everything because I feel like a lot of it really sits together versus me trying to separate and spending the energy to separate.
Totally. And for me, I think yoga ironically has helped me come to that vulnerable space, but to be kind of what maybe one would consider as non-yogic, because I think for a while growing up, I used yoga as a really safe security blanket. And, I didn't feel super comfortable, going and exploring the people around me, in my age group, So I was kind of both finding myself in yoga, but also kind of potentially hiding away. And then, after, getting older and also practicing more yoga and just being a human on earth, I think yoga gave me the skills to just be vulnerable in showing up in spaces like those, gay men's queer, experiences without, showing up with so much shame of I don't look like these people. I'm not like these people. I don't feel like I fit in here. Instead, I think that, the more I'm able to just sit within what I am, the more that I'm able to be in those spaces and not feel, like I'm not welcome there. And the more people actually are kind of drawn towards me. So
how do you think this, so you're coming into this, maybe this isn't you're coming into, but this is, some wisdom that's really coming out of you. It's big and it's potent and it's in your life and it's right there front and center, literally on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
How, is it shifting your teaching in any way? Have you noticed that? Are you feeling is there a feeling different while you teach? Is there the physical action that's changed or?
One of the things that I am kind of trying to refine currently is how can I help my students also be on a journey to finding what works for them and what is most authentic to them and who they are as authentic people, rather than, how can we all bend ourselves into these really odd shapes, and that's fun and interesting and could perhaps be insightful on this journey to trying to be authentic in our practice. But it's not, it's also potentially a hindrance, because so many people get wrapped up in not looking like, it used to be not looking like, that person a few mats down, but now it's like that other person in that small box.
Right.
So, I'm just kind of, I feel like, although I've been teaching for about 10 years now, I feel like still kind of like a baby yoga teacher, just because as I get older and wiser as a human, the more I'm able to just show up as a yoga teacher. I think that, it just really informs how I teach and how I feel in my body, and how therefore I can help other people feel in their body.
Yeah, and I think that'll always change too, depending on where you are at in life and your experience. I feel the same exact way. I've been teaching for, this will be 12 years, 12 years, something like that, 12 years, like 11, 12 years. And I still feel like my feet are barely wet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I barely kind of understand what I'm doing, but not really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like instead of, at the beginning, you're kind of worried about, oh gosh, is this sequence going to work? Or, not sequence like, sparkly clothing, but the sequence of like, what
that's what I was thinking. That's great. We're not talking about sequence.
I was I'm like, does this pink sequence work today? Are people going to like it? Yeah. But like, am I a good teacher in regards to understanding Warrior 2? But now it's more of like, wow, this is a really vast pot of wisdom that I want to share. And how do I do it in a way that is authentic and true to who I am right now as a human being? And I think that's why most yoga teachers are always going to continue to walk that path of feeling a little bit in awe of being a yoga teacher, and if you're not feeling challenged or in awe or like you're growing, you're perhaps, needing to go back to your practice as being a student.
I think about that too. Like, I don't know, like you were just saying, like the reason why I want to go to a yoga teacher is because of their experience. There's something that, they have, or that they, that they present that I either want or see in myself, or, whatever it is. And so, I'm going back to you on this, but when I saw you like share it and I read it, I was like, yeah, like this is what I want in a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
I want to know that I've been there too,
Totally.
And that we're in different stages in life for sure.
Yeah.
But
showing your true colors and showing the kind of what's happening behind the scenes is, really empowering for people to see. And it's not just empowering for me to share that, but when people observe it, it acts as a teaching moment, and it kind of demonstrates everything I'm trying to sum up in a yoga class. Like, you don't have to be perfect. You should listen to your body and listen to your experience and trust in your path. That's that experience that I had, and sharing it, was a really, I'm not trying to, it was an intuitive way to to say those words, and to teach that lesson.
Yeah. Do you ever feel, I know, when I took my first, like advanced training specifically, I thought, I've taken a few of them now, and every time I've been influenced by, a teacher, be it whoever, it was. And for a while there, I really thought, because I had followed, certain teachers that obviously you emulate them for a really long time. And I almost held my voice back for a bit. Like I almost, I have one hell of a story, and I almost got rid of it for a long time. I almost stopped sharing my story for a long time, and just because does that make sense? Like I stopped sharing it because I was just so deep in this wealth of knowledge, versus how do I take that? Plus, what is real for me is vulnerability. What is real for me is sharing my experience. It's not just, chanting. It's not just anatomy. It's not just crazy Kundalini stuff. It's actually a blend of all of it. It really is what I love to do.
Yeah,
it's like,
totally. I mean, I've had the exact same experience, and, my primary teacher since almost the beginning has always been Jason, and Jason Crandall. And, I've had to come to this realization over the years that I'm actually a very different human being than Jason. And, Jason is magnificent and wonderful in what he does and how
he's okay. He's all right.
And I'm magnificent. I bow at his feet. But, he is he is a totally different human than I am. And I am like probably the most emotional, like mushy person that ever, I feel really connected with my emotions. So for me, showing up and teaching authentically is very different than the way, Jason would probably show up in his classes. And I'll let Jason speak for himself, but,
Right.
I really feel empowered over the years. And I feel like this is what Jason wants for his students to, find my voice and to sit in my truth and show up in teaching that way. And, it's also kind of like we were talking about earlier, a little bit difficult to be vulnerable because, as Brene Brown calls them, the shame gremlins poke their heads up, and you just think, well, people don't want to hear this. People want to just talk about anatomy, just talk about the pose. People don't want me, there's a very fine line between unloading on someone and also giving someone a really unique, authentic experience by sharing your story. So,
yeah. There's one thing that I came to terms with, or actually like made sense of. I studied with Jason for a long time as well. And what Jason, I think for me, I don't know if you can relate to this, but what Jason gave me was the skills and the tool set to get people to feel safe in a class with me.
Exactly.
Because I understood the body because of him. I understood sequencing because of him. And so people can come to class being like, wow, like Danny's actually going to put something that feels good in my body, that I can feel safe in, like to actually like move, like they don't really have to think about it anymore. And then from there, I was able to layer in my Dharma from there because I had that skill set that he gave me. I was able to layer in the vulnerability. I was able to layer in the storytelling. I was able to you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the things that's why I think Jason is one of the like teacher of teachers, because he has this really amazing, really clear methodology that he also leaves a lot of space for you to, put your own self into it. And I'm really happy about that. And I feel the exact same way as you. And, for me, therefore, the experience of teaching in an authentic way and sharing Dharma has actually been a lot more of a journey than trying to teach someone Warrior 2, because, Jason does a pretty good job of teaching us how to do that. And the one thing that I feel like I've had to really explore on my own is this: how do I, communicate my authentic voice? Because, to be honest, that's what makes you a good teacher. You could teach Warrior 2 in a lot of ways, and people could still have a good experience or a bad experience. And I think that showing up and using your voice is a really important factor in being a good yoga teacher.
So how are you showing up and using your authentic voice?
These days it's kind of interesting because obviously we're working through the virtual platform these days.
Wait, what? That's new.
I know. I feel like a broken record.
Wait, for real? Hold on a second.
I am excited for the day that we can all be back together in person. And that feels personally for me as a really authentic way to teach. But it's been an exploration trying to, do all of these things that we've been talking about. But also on Zoom or through YouTube or, just however we do it virtually. Yeah. And, that's one thing that I think we're all kind of baby teachers with, still trying to figure out how to do that best.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't listen, I'm so happy for everyone out there. I'm so glad I get to teach you online, but I cannot wait to host you in person. I cannot wait. I will say though, just as it has been cool to connect with, some of the communities that I have from other places in the world. Like I have a few people in Detroit, and then I have another few people in London, and it's been really cool to practice with them every week.
Yeah, totally.
They're like there and they're hanging out, and that's like super cool. But I also can't wait to go to Detroit, and I can't wait to go to London and like hang out with these people.
And let's be honest, like as yoga teachers, we are pre-COVID, we are running all over the city. We're doing like 18 things at once, and it's exhausting, and burnout is real. And this period of time has been kind of a blessing in a lot of ways, because now we just open up our computer and we're there. And trying to get around isn't so crazy. And so that's one thing there's always a silver lining.
I'm not looking forward to that. I'm pretty vocal and honest about it. I don't know that I ever want to go back to that life. I don't know that I want to run around town. Everyone knows I've opened up my home studio and I'm planning on doing I can do about 12 mats in here. And I'm opening up opening up a studio, but no one knows that.
Yeah. I'll be excited for one of those classes there in person.
I feel like that's really where I'm at right now. Like for me, I definitely want a studio to go back to for sure. I just don't want the running around. Mm-hmm. I don't really feel like that's beneficial. I don't really feel like I can serve others. And, if we're being super vulnerable, like I hated it. I was miserable. Like I was absolutely 100% miserable doing it. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard to be a hamster on a hamster wheel and then also realize that you're a hamster on a hamster wheel. And, so that's why this extended period of time has been helpful in, we didn't really have any other choice. And now as we re-enter these new days, we are able to be a little bit more skillful in the way that we create our schedules and show up as yoga teachers in our community. And I'm sure that, the tools that we've built together in this last, year or so will
I think it's been like 10 years, right?
10 years or something. I don't know. Something like that.
It's like still March, right?
March, something like 2028 or something.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting process to show up in our community again in person, but also keep some of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's ever going to go back. I think virtual is going to always be a thing. I think a lot of people wanted to do it for a really long time. They just didn't. Mm-hmm. Jack, I just, I said it earlier and I said it via Instagram. I really am just so, as a human that sees you from afar, it's just really cool to see you not even step into your power. That's saying that just to see that awaken in you and to, like, I read that and was like, truly, I was standing up like, fuck yeah. I'm so happy for this man right now. This is so fucking cool. Because I think that's where our superpower is as humans, whether you're a teacher or whatever, like we all go through it, all of us. And you have a separate lens, you go through it as a yoga teacher, as a queer yoga teacher. So I'm seeing you I'm reading this stuff and I'm like, yeah, like, yes, I get it. I hundo P, knowing that second layer as well. And I feel a lot of people, what you did was an act of bravery. What you did was an act of slaying a demon, like you were able to really just step forth and not in a way that was boastful or like, oh, look at me. I'm like, look how any of that is just being honest. And I think that's just really cool. It's just really cool to watch from afar. It's really cool to see your growth.
I appreciate that, that feedback. And I do feel like my kind of metaphorical balls have dropped and I am now like a man, or whatever. But, that is something that just kind of living life and, going through our journey, allows us to do. And, having that kind of courage to just show up and be truthful with what's happening, and share that is a really powerful lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, man. I think your vulnerability is your superpower. So thanks for bringing it out, man. We all love it.
Thanks, Danny.
Jack, I'm glad I got to finally have you on the show. It's been like way overdue. We haven't connected in a minute and any of that. So I'm just so thankful that you were able to pop in and share your truth with everybody. It's important.
Well, it's been so good to talk with you, and I've really enjoyed being on the podcast, and I hope that we can have some, vulnerable conversations in the future.
I am down. I really just want to sit and talk about my feelings all the
Or
time.
we could just film ourselves crying, and then
that's
that.
that's the Jack and Danny spinoff podcast. It's called Men and Tears.
We could cuddle some puppies and just cry. That's honestly that feels real to me at this point.
Men in Tears. It's just the sounds of us crying. But if you pay the Patreon additional, you'll get the video of us crying.
You can also get this special higher level subscription where we just send you a little
the tears.
Oh gosh,
I'm in. You heard that here.
You can make a business with anything these days. So
we'll put a link in the show notes. Oh, all right, Jack. Well, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Danny.
And yeah, for sure. Until the next Seeker and Sage, this is Danny and Jack Workman saying peace out.
Peace out.